Start transmission. 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting to you live from the Static Clan compound, you are now listening to the Jaysin Static Experience, a podcast from an award-winning nobody, noted raconteur, Renaissance man, a man with a sailor's mouth, but he has never sailed, and who likes to talk about a cornucopia of topics. This podcast is brought to you by www.jaysinstatic.com, a place filled with all your pop culture, antiques, and collectible needs. And now your host, the one and only Jaysin Static.
Ain't gonna happen.
Welcome back, everybody. Jaysin Static with another mother episode. I'm not going to say that bad word because the man that I have on here today doesn't like bad words, so I'm going to be nice and I'm going to try my darndest. See what I just did there? I'm going to try my darndest not to say any bad words because I respect the gentleman that I have, even though I probably shouldn't sometimes, but none other than the one and only Pat Dees, Mr. It ain't gonna happen, Pat Dees. It ain't gonna happen.
You know, you can't touch this.
You can't touch this. Got it. And I'll let you guys know, you definitely cannot touch Pat Dees. You can't. The man, the myth, the legend, Pat Dees. How you doing, my brother?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Oh man, I'm good. So
when I got the invite, I was like, wait, oh yeah, it's a new year. So it's sort of a restart to hash back our relationship with Static that we've kind of been we go back now about 2 years here and so people would think that we were doing wrestling shoots in the beginning when we were doing the show back then on your channel.
Yeah. See, we did a lot for all of those who's listening. I used to do live streams. My podcast was once a live stream on YouTube, and I kind of ventured away from it. I got tired of doing the whole live stream thing. It just wasn't really it got too repetitive for me, almost to the point of where like it was just kind of like I was just rehashing the same old stuff over and over and over and over and over again. And it just kind of got boring for me. And you know me, man, if I get bored of something, I just stop doing it, and no sense in doing something that I get bored of or that's not giving me a challenge.
Well, it was nice hanging out though back then. I do miss some of the shows, but for people that are listening now that didn't know, back then, who kind of the term used to be moot it and boot it.
Yeah, mooted and booted, baby.
Yeah, so I would kind of come on here and banter with Static, just like if we were wrestling arch rivals.
There was a lot of things that came about, that came on the live stream, that came from mine and yours banter back and forth.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna happen. What are you talking about, Pat Dees?
I can't touch this.
Can't touch this, Pat Dees. Or the whole mooted and booted. Just me mooting and booting anybody and everybody out of the conversations at the drop of a dime. It was just that kind of started with you. Like I didn't start doing that stuff until I started doing it to you. So
well, I was purposely kind of egging you on sometimes just for it to happen.
Yeah,
and then it was funny because I got you back when I invited you on my live and created a trailer for my channel because you weren't going to go live that night and then went live and people love it and laugh at it. I still laugh at it. And
yeah, I watched the beginning of the live that you did the other day. I just watched the beginning of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I seen there was a handful of people in the chat that was laughing about it.
Yeah, it's about having a good time, doing this type of stuff and making new friends and networking out, and it's all good. It's not done in a malice way. It's just done to have fun.
Oh yeah, that was my whole shtick on YouTube is, I kind of banter back and forth with people. I try to poke fun at people and start little things back and forth, and none of it ever meant to be. None of it was ever done with malice intent. Like, I was never trying to hurt or bother or harm anybody. I just did it because I thought it was funny. And most people realize that off the bat, that, 90% of everything that ever got said on my shows were pretty much banter and joking. Like, most people realize that, but there was always that handful of people that really got upset with me whenever I started bantering about.
Well, and I said to you before I come on here, I didn't want to really talk anything politics because, really what we've been through the last year with COVID in politics, it's you're going to always piss off half the country. So it's like I didn't even want to go down that road. So that's always a hard subject to talk about. Yeah. But what are we going to talk about today on Statics?
Oh man, we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. Let's first off, since this is not going to be uploaded on YouTube, for those who know, so if you've been following the podcast, you know that I kind of moved all my stuff off of YouTube, and I don't upload anything over there on YouTube. That relates to my podcast, and it's strictly on all the podcast platforms, and now it's also over on Odyssey. So tell
Odyssey, what is that, like an adult website or?
No, man, you would wish.
It sounds it,
And here you told me not to bring up anything like that, and you want.
I said let's keep it PG, but I want to make sure I'm not, on some foreign website.
Oh man, you know what? Odyssey is a new video platform. It runs on a blockchain. You earn cryptocurrencies from uploads and stuff like that, and it's a pretty good place. I've enjoyed some of the upload that I've enjoyed my time there. Hell, I've made more in a week. I've made more in cryptocurrency in a week on that platform than I have on YouTube in 4 years.
Wow.
And it's not much, and like $4 or $5, but considering the fact that I've been on YouTube doing live shows for 4 years. And the only revenue that I ever earned from YouTube was people giving me
super chats.
But I never fully turned on my super chat thing. It was always direct donations from straight from the person to PayPal.
Backdoor.
It was all backdoor because I never wanted to give that 30% to YouTube. That
right.
If you get $5 from somebody, YouTube's taking 30% of that, like.
Well, for me, I just got my Google 1099. Only last year I made about $1,800 with probably about half 50-50, half advertisement, half super chats. And honestly, I'm grateful for it. I came to YouTube 2 years ago, and it's been a platform to meet and network with people. I have bigger aspirations that I want to do more. I just launched another channel where I talk about money and stocks and things like that. And that channel's called Money Me.
We'll get into that, the Money Me part, a little bit later, because I actually did want to talk to you about stock stuff. But what actually got you into the whole concept and idea of wanting to actually do YouTube? What was it that started you in that little journey?
Well, I mean, I used to be in the restaurant business, and a couple years ago found out I had breast cancer, and went through that and had surgery, 41 rounds of radiation, but unfortunately, because of all that and competition at the same time, I had to close down a restaurant that I had for close to 12 years.
Right.
And it was a big financial impact, but I still needed to work and keep a roof above my head. And basically through Google search, I had typed in, male breast cancer and eBay, and came across Scott, the bearded picker, and started watching him, started interacting with him, and realized that there was a bigger opportunity that I could work from home and become a full-time reseller, even though I called myself a hobbyist reseller, because basically I was buying like wrestlers or selling toys or buying cards and selling toys over the last 20 years, but not at the point where it was a yearly income. It was more to collect things or just, fill that need and just make a little bit of vacation money. Then I
Right.
started really seeing how, the opportunity with YouTube that, you can actually have your own channel and get paid to basically put out videos out there and talk like this and do things and earn a living also. Now for me, it's not been earning a living. It's just been some extra money. And I've
Right.
honestly have put it right back out in other super chats for other channels to bring awareness and support other channels. But it's one of those early things that I think if I stick to it, that 5 years from now that I could probably make enough of an income to, pay for a vehicle a year.
Right. Now, seeing that I'm somebody that's never been paid by YouTube because I've always been kind of a bad boy on that end, and I don't do the typical YouTube thing. I never took YouTube as most people that want to get into doing YouTube to make money. I never took it in that vein. I always just used it as a mode to have fun and talk about the things that I enjoyed to talk about. What was it like in the early days of your YouTube trying to start that out?
Well, I knew I had to put in the time. I was, when people said to me, Pat Dees, what do you want to be? And I just wanted to be myself. I wanted to be, my favorite show is American Pickers. And part of reselling is I wanted to be able, I call myself Pat Dees, the traveling picker, and I wanted to travel the country and find neat things and record footage. But at the same time, I wanted to do, talk show stuff like David Letterman, where I would invite different guests on from even different, not maybe even necessarily resellers,
Right.
but then do an occasional video in between that would be, if I did something fun or something interesting. So I've still stuck to that theme because part of what I do right now with Amazon, there's not much to show for that. So I've struggled to put out daily content, and I didn't realize that honestly to keep growing at a rate that these bigger channels do, you need to create daily content, and that is the struggle to balance all this stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, that was another thing that I'm a creative, like I guess you could say like I've always enjoyed the artistic aspect of stuff. So just being able to pump out video after video after video after video, even if it was even if I wasn't inspired at the time, that's something that's extremely hard for me to do. Like I can't just I knew that I was never going to be the stereotypical YouTuber, like I can't produce daily content. Maybe if I had maybe if I did my podcast and I was able to get a little bit of oomph behind it and where it started to take off a little bit, and I was able to just go full time and do my podcast and talk to random people every day, I could do that. But to actually make content every single day, a different video every single day that's still engaging and interesting to watch, because whether people want to believe it or not, that's kind of the whole key of YouTube, is being able to hook somebody to make them watch you day in and day out every single day. That's the real secret sauce of YouTube.
Well, and I think people don't give television shows enough credit that, and I gave American Pickers, Letterman, and it takes sometimes a crew of 200 people to put those shows together. You got, I've been to the David Letterman studio because I live here in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, and I've been up there 6 times, have met some of the people that work for show. I have a former employee that is, she does production with movies and stuff like that. And to put these, even when the guys, Mike and Frank, go on the road, people may not realize there's 10 people, there's a crew on the road with them. When we're doing this ourselves, we're the producer, we're the, the editor, we're the writer, we're the cameraman and all that stuff. So, when people are listening to this, and if you're going to college to get into TV production or want to do a YouTube channel, you really gotta, I think I could probably be more successful doing YouTube if I probably had a little help. I have the ideas. It's just a matter of basically okay, could I hand something off and have them edit it and really do a great job with graphics and telling the story? And that's very difficult. If you see some of the bigger channels like Mr. Beast, Perfect and stuff like that, there's about 5 to 10 people involved with that. So it is a bigger production than what people think.
Yeah, I watched a thing. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? I don't remember what day it was, but Jake the Viking guy that was on Mr. Beast, he did a video, and I watched that, and he was talking about how they have production shows. Like when they go to record those episodes of the YouTube show, they shoot it and work it just like an actual TV production.
Right.
You know, so even, I mean, you can go as far. It's not just like, I always thought Mr. Beast was just a bunch of friends hanging out and, you know, doing videos together and making goofy ass stuff. But now, like, that's actually, like, it would actually surprise me, because to know that it was actually shot and they had shooting days and hours and time and
right.
And they shot it just like a TV production would.
Right. Well,
I was just like, man, that kind of made me think about it a little bit.
Right. And that's why, in all honesty, in the beginning, when I started shooting videos for YouTube, I knew that the quality wasn't there, but what I was trying to do was just get the experience, camera angles, upload, knowing how to edit. And I think 5 years from now, I'll look back and say, I don't have to do daily content, because if you can get a large enough subscriber base, you don't have to do daily content. You can get away with 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Going back to a show like Cheers did, let's say, 1 episode a week, but they worked on it all week. And then they filmed it. They practiced. They sat down at tables. They went over their lines. And then one day they brought an audience in, and then they filmed it live. But it took them 6-7 years to have 250 episodes, where this mentality on YouTube is, if you do even 5 videos a week, you're doing 250 episodes a year, versus a quality show like Cheers, it took 6 years to do. So, my hope is down the road is to get enough following that basically I can do 2 or 3 videos a week and garner enough views from them, that Mr. Beast, perfect example, I think only does 1 video a week and still gets about 25 million views. So, I want to have quality over quantity in the future. Yeah. And that's part of the learning curve, and knowing that you need to improve and get better, and hopefully get people that are, want to watch you.
Yeah. That's something that I realized real quick. Like, whenever I started doing it, and I actually started, like, my very first handful of stuff that I did on YouTube, I was doing unboxing videos, and they did okay. It wasn't too bad, but I was just like, I don't really like doing this. Like, I just did it for fun. And I was like, I don't really like doing this that much. The editing, I don't, and then I ended up meeting John, Show Me Picker. And, I was just like, well, I already kind of do the whole reselling thing. At that time, I was selling stuff on eBay at the time. So, and John said that he did YouTube, and I seen what they did, and I did a couple of YouTube videos for eBay, maybe like a month or so worth of stuff, and I was just like, man, I just don't like it. Like, it was one of those things. I was just like, there's really no super creative process behind it.
All right.
It's essentially just me sitting in front of a camera going, hey, this is what I sold today. Hey, this and this, or hey, I picked this up. And I'm not dogging any of the people that do reselling content. I'm just saying it wasn't for me.
Right.
And I realized that very quickly, that that's not the type of content that I wanted to do.
Well, and let's be honest, I think even some of these larger channels that do those videos, percentage-wise, the people that are watching them out of subscriber base is actually very low, unless it's something like, like storage units have a lot of popularity because of the unknown, what you're going to find in there. And, if someone could make a catchy thumbnail, like I found 3 old World War II guns, and the people who are into guns, people old World War stuff, or they want to see them. If I put something, I found a pair of jeans in there, no one's gonna watch that. They want to find stuff that is really unique, or wow, like I found 2,000 pair of Air Jordans or something.
I bet you if you found a pair of a nice pair of old Levi jeans in a storage unit, like turn of the century Levi jeans.
Something.
Oh my God, I bet that would be a video that would blow up.
Something that then you could say, I found a $20,000 pair of Levi jeans, and then you show maybe the end result is you show that they got sold, and then people, wow, that then it gets them into going through their closet, or going, maybe digging in the old attic or something like that. And that's what it is, because if you look lately, the popularity of sports cards, people are selling $3 million Mike Trout cards, and now all of a sudden people are actually going back through their 80s and 90 cards, and they're selling for they're selling for double the value just in the past year.
I'll say this. I back whenever I was doing my live stream shows, I don't remember the panel of people that I had on there, but normally my shows, they usually had 4 or 5 different people in there at any time, and I remember saying one night, I go, guys, I think it could be good, because that I think we were talking like about bolos and shit that night. We're just talking about reselling that night, and I popped off. I was like, hey guys, I go, within the next year or so, sports cards is going to make a fucking boom again. Sorry for my language, people, but it's gonna boom again. And they laughed. Oh, no, it's not. That's dead. That's a dead market. It's not going to. Where'd you hear that from? This and this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, just don't believe me. And guess what? When sports cards started blowing up again, Pat Dees, and all of those same people that were on my show and in that chat room, and I see them all talking about going out and getting sports cards and stuff like that, I'm like, man, y'all should have listened to me. Well, you should have listened to me a year and a half ago when I was telling you that.
I've been talking about cards for years. I mean, one of my most popular videos, it has about 5,000 views, is buying and selling sports cards. So I'm a big fan of sports cards and collecting. And Gary Vee has been talking about it also on his show and stuff like that. And sports cards are not going away. Because a lot of the kids that play sports want to do it. The rarity of some of these cards, the high-end buyers that are baseball players and stuff like that will buy the rare cards because they have disposable income. And cards are not going away. Will they fluctuate in value certain times? Of course. Yeah. A player comes out and then gets hurt a year into it. Well, his card ain't going to be worth nothing. But you get some of these cards that, especially the rarity of the mantles and stuff like that back from the 50s and 60s, those cards are just going up in value. I sold a card, a 1981 Joe Montana, and or it was an 82. I think it was 81, graded 9, $450 6 years ago. It's now worth $2,000.
Yeah, it's just like any collectibles. Anything that's collectible, it all ebbs and flows. That's the essence of the collectibles world. Sometimes the stuff's real high, sometimes it's real low. Well, it's one of those finicky markets that you never know. Like the bottom could drop out super quick. Right.
And the cards, they can't, once they make them that year, that's it. They're not like, I'm thinking of like Beanie Babies. You can reproduce a Beanie Baby, but you can't pin it through a year, or you can't tie a Beanie Baby to a particular person. It makes me think of and off the top of my mind, like Michael Jackson cards back when he was popular in the 80s. Well, he's gone now. They're not making those cards now, and people who are fans across the world, just want a little bit of hold a piece of that, and they're willing to, drop the money for him and. Buy into that stuff. And that's what's great about being a reseller. And sometimes is the appeal of being the traveling pickers, getting out on the road and finding those unique things that people have that they don't even know that they have sometimes, or that there's a value in those things.
What is some of the stuff that you've enjoyed? you said that you're you're kind of a collector and a of sports cards and stuff like that. What is some of the other stuff that you've enjoyed either collecting and or just selling in general?
Three things that I collect personally, and it's tough being a reseller because you get caught into buying it and you don't want to resell it. Is I like the old LJN wrestlers back from the early '80s. I like baseball cards.
Yeah.
I have the wrestling cards, of course, because I'm a wrestling fan, and vintage lunchboxes. I love vintage lunchboxes because when I was a kid, I don't think I had one because a lot of times, honestly, the way I grew up, my parents didn't have their priorities right, and we qualified for the free lunch in school. So mom and dad weren't going to spend money at home that they said they didn't have for us to pack in a bag even and take to school. So I love the vintage lunchboxes.
Right.
I probably have a collection of about 75 of them. I just recently picked up like 40 of them. Now, there's some duplicates in there that I will sell, and basically I'll sell some of them off to kind of pay for my own collection. But
you talking about the tin ones, or are you talking about the plastic ones?
Both. I mean, I like the tin ones better. They did switch to some plastic later on, but
like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I'm talking like 70s and 80s. I typically like. Now I have viewers actually send me stuff from, if they're sending to me as gifts, I don't care. I actually have this backdrop up. I had moved my studio, what I call here, down in my finished area basement. But because I do 2 channels and 2 shows, I threw this. But I'm working on that basically when people watch, when I do eBay reselling content on my main channel, Pat Dees, that people can see the lunch boxes and different things that I'll have up. But
what's the best lunch box that you got?
I got just recently. I just got a 1962 Flintstones lunchbox. I bought that on a live YouTube auction, and it's worth about $100, and I got it for $50.
That's not bad.
Yeah, people go to yard sales and pick them up for $5 or $10. Now, unfortunately, sometimes when you put it out there that you like certain things, I get messages all the time that, and I don't want to pay full blown retail to buy them because I'm a businessman too, and I got to set a budget. And not get to the point where I get caught up in it. You can look on eBay. Like I'll look at like old Dukes of Hazzard. You can find some of the A-Team. You can spend $200, $250 on a lunchbox. When I get back out there on the road again, once we get past COVID, there's a place in Georgia that an older gentleman has they created a couple thousand different lunchboxes, and he has a museum of vintage lunchboxes that I want to go down and do a little filming and put it on my channel because it'll even go with what I like personally.
That's kind of what I've decided I'm going to do for the year is like I said in the opening, I kind of moved away from YouTube, and that's just a personal thing. My personal preference. I really wasn't getting nothing from YouTube, and after doing it for 4 or 5 years now and not ever earning anything, and putting in the amount of time and work and effort and stuff that I started doing in the videos and producing things and stuff like that, like I felt that was more than enough time went by for me to be able to make a return off of my investment. And I knew that I was never going to get that with YouTube unless I remove everything from my channel and start all over. And that's not something that I was willing to do because I built the channel. I built the channel up to where it's at. And I mean, I might put something out there occasionally, just, maybe a video here and a video there, just like update stuff. Mm-hmm. But like as for like actual producing stuff, I don't think I'm going to do that. But I've realized that I do like producing video, and I'm going to just start producing videos and stuff that I like to do. Essentially, I guess you can say that I'm going to have a vlog channel, but it's going to be over on Odyssey. That's where my podcast, my full length podcast will get uploaded over on Odyssey. And then I started doing hiking videos getting back into the hiking thing. I used to love hiking whenever I was in my 20s, and now that I'm in my late 30s, almost 40, I was just like, well, maybe I should start doing that again because it's fun, it's exercise, and that's stuff that I need to do. Seeing that I'm getting older, I need to get out, and instead of staying out in front of my instead of staying in front of my computer all day doing reselling stuff and watching videos and whatnot, I figured why not just get out in the open air and walk some wooded things. But that, and I also I'm going to be buying a house soon, hopefully. So there's going to be house building videos on there. When I get the house and it has a garage, I'll finally be able to get to work on my Datsun that I have. So there's going to be car building videos on there.
Oh, there you go. And I tell you, it's hearing this. I feel this new side of you, Static, is encouraging because maybe you'll film some of this and get some traction and come back and say, hey, this is just a different something I'm doing on YouTube, and people are liking it, and I like it, and the response I'm getting, and honestly, when you start getting a response that is encouraging and positive, it's nice to want to do it more then because it feels good.
Yeah, it does feel good to have people watch your stuff and realize that people are really vibing with it. And when you do it for so long and you don't get no traction and you're just grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding, and you're still doing great content, but you're not growing like you should be because of the algorithm or something you said in the video because you get down.
Yeah, and if YouTube is not pushing that type of content out because it's not advertisement friendly, then it does make it difficult. It is what it is. This is why I try to, and I always joke, and Pat Dees tries to be a cross between Willy Wonka and Walt Disney, because down the road, and I've talked about this before, I really want to get out as the traveling picker. I talk about maybe wanting to do like fairs when I would be at a fair, because I've done a couple demolition derby videos where I would be at a fair and, hey guys, this is Pat Dees and we're live from the West End Fair, and what happens is you get people in a sense that are walking through the fair and want their 15 minutes of fame because you're filming and they want to see themselves on YouTube, and maybe they didn't buy a ticket to go into the demolition derby, but they want to see it later, or they want to see what's going on, and it draws in an audience. And I always thought YouTube, honestly, as a way of being part of my resume, and so that's why I kind of frowned on anything that's negative or not PG related, because if I go to a fair board and say, hey, would you guys allow me to come in and film and do these things, they go and look at my channel and I'm on there spewing out and hate or bad things or things that aren't advertiser friendly, then they say, nah, we don't want nothing to do with this guy because he doesn't bring a good, wholesome image to it. And I've stuck by that. And in reality, that's how I am in real life. If I get angry or I got to holler at the kids to pick that up or something like that. That's a.
Are you come in and holler at me in my private chats, scream and cuss at me in my private chats?
Yeah, but that's only for like 2 minutes, and then we hug and make up, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always just been. I know my mouth. I've always known that my mouth and the way that I am as a person, just kind of the person that just blurts stuff out. I've always known that works against me. But at the same time, I've just been like, you know what? I'm authentically me.
Yeah, and please don't take it wrong that I say, look, I mean, I think there's a time and a place for things.
Oh, yeah.
I come from a business, in other words, I had my own businesses. And I guess as I was growing up, on welfare and poor, and there was a lot of cursing in my family. But I watch comedians. I watch Rich. I love Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I guess, when I worked in the restaurant, I couldn't get mad at a customer and say, get the, out, because it just wasn't a place.
Right.
If you're amongst a bunch of guys hanging out and you're blurting once in a while and stuff like that, that's fine. But
Yeah.
but I get it, and sometimes people do it. You being a former wrestler, I'm sure there was a lot of that aggressive type talk and style because that was just part of that, sports and stuff like that.
That's part of the shtick.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, even with the whole wrestling aspect, like, it's kind of, I realized whenever I was wrestling that when I first started out, they wanted me to be a baby face, and they wanted me to be this over the top,
Well, I got a quick question for Static.
Yeah.
To be a baby face, don't you need a baby face? You still have that grizzled bear look.
At that time, I didn't have a beard. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I had facial hair. I kind of guess you could say like I had the Jeff Hardy look almost, like the early young Jeff Hardy where he shaved. I
know. I've
designs.
I've seen pictures of you in the past.
Yeah, I had
know
that
what
look.
you're talking about. So I like to bust your chops now.
Yeah, I had that look, but and I realized that character that they wanted me to play, the electrifying Jaysin Static, the over the top loud, essentially like I was like the midget version of Sting, the blonde haired Sting, where it was whoa yeah type thing. That's what they wanted me to be.
Do you have a hard time turning that off then when you're not wrestling?
What, my attitude?
Well, I think when you become a character, I get in trouble once in a while because I'll say, Pat Dees, and someone says, "Oh, you're talking in third person." And when you're entertaining person, like being like yourself, a former professional wrestler, how do you turn that off when you're not wrestling and you're out in the public scene, or you're out, because it consumes you and becomes part of your life?
Well, this was the story that I was leading into, and I realized that character, that particular gimmick that they had me doing, wasn't actually me. But whenever I morphed into the wild and crazy semi-schizophrenic heel Jaysin Static, is where that I really found my niche of the actual person. I'm not saying I'm a bad guy or I'm a heel or I'm schizophrenic, but the mentality that I have of doing one thing and then I don't really like doing that anymore. I'm just going to go do this. That kind of that schizophrenic mindset of multiple person. Most schizophrenics, they have multiple personality and stuff like that, and they're different people. They could be one person one minute and then the next person the next minute, and that's kind of I realized as I looked back at my life and I was just like, that's kind of me. That's kind of how my whole life has been led. Is I go from thing to thing. I do things that I think I like to do. I'm like, I want to try this out. I want to try this. And then if I try it and I start doing it and I end up not liking it, then I just don't do it anymore. And I find something else that I like to do until I find something that I really like to do. And I found what I really like to do is be able to talk to people.
Well, it sounds like, Static, you have some commitment issues. Is that why it took 2 years for you to commit to having Pat Dees on your podcast?
It did, probably. I guess you could say I do have commitment issues. I found
Pat Dees 2 years ago. I don't like him. I do like him. I don't like him. Here it is in 2021. You invite me to come onto your show.
Well, I mean, sometimes if we're going to use the old wrestling terminology, we gotta let the feud simmer.
Oh, the feud's not simmered. When I'm coming down,
this is
I'm still whooping your ass. The old man is going to come down.
I mean, Pat, this is the blow off. This is the blow off of the feud.
Whoa.
This is that's the terminology of the last match.
If you watch like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, those guys would do their matches for 30 years. So 10 years from now, I'm still going to be wanting to jump off the top and elbow you in the head or something.
Well, maybe if my podcast picks up a little bit, maybe it picks up because I have Pat Dees on it. Who knows? But maybe I'll have you on again one day. Maybe I'll have you on again one day, and you'll actually be able to sit in a studio and not so far away, because that's my ultimate goal, is to actually have a studio where I can bring people in.
No, I do appreciate coming on. I enjoy this type of stuff. I've been a former business owner and having 800 employees over 17 years. It's relatively easy for me to chit chat and get along with people, and so I'm enjoying this.
What was the original businesses that you said you had 800 employees? What was those type of business?
I used to own a Subway franchise. I had 3 of them. I did that for like 8 years, and then for 12 years, I had a sit-down family-style restaurant.
What was your main dish at that sit-down family restaurant? I have a little bit of experience in the restaurant business.
Yeah. Well, I think 90% of America, they say when they start at teenagers, they start out in the restaurant business, because that's the thing. It was always a good place to kind of start and make extra money and stuff like that. You didn't need much skills because a lot of restaurants were willing to train you. A lot of cooks started out as dishwashers and then became short order cooks.
What was the name of that restaurant?
It was a family name that I would prefer not to put out.
Okay.
Just because honestly, it ended in a bad financial way, and I've decided to move on and not focus on it, even though I still have some bills that I have to pay in relation to that. But
Pat Dees Lucky Dogs.
Yeah, well, at the end, it was called Pat's Country Restaurant. I tried to save it, but just with the cancer and too much going on, I just couldn't do it, and it broke my heart. It was an emotional thing, and to work, honestly, Static, to work so damn hard to lose. But you know what? Hindsight, I probably should have closed it 5 years prior.
Was you the cook, or was you just the owner?
No. I cooked. I used to work in an Italian restaurant, and I worked in diners and stuff. I wasn't the cook because at one time when we were doing $500,000, I had 40 employees. So,
right.
And we were open typically at one time 6 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Back in the first year or two, in my area, I live in a seasonal area in the Poconos, so we get a lot of people, honestly, between Memorial Day and Labor Day. But the problem is winter is so long, and a lot of those, what we call snowbirds, leave to Florida, Philadelphia, and there's a lot of part-time people that live in New York and New Jersey and come up the year. So our area, we don't even have police in our area. We rely on the state police, which is 15 miles away. So our area, when it snows, they don't plow almost basically until it's over. So when you have some long, hard-ass winters, it was tough on the business. What I learned from the business was the value of a name, the value of a franchise. The younger generation is going to McDonald's of the world, the Subway of the world, and I used to own 3 Subway franchises, and it is getting harder and harder for mom and pops to survive because, years ago people would go after Sunday after church and sit down as a lot of families don't sit down together anymore. They're both having to work. It's grab and go. And when you go to a franchise, what McDonald's is in Florida, California, Texas, wherever you're at. But you don't know what Pat's Country Restaurant is. Do I want to try it out? I mean, we served typically 50,000 meals a year, but we probably needed to serve 51,000 meals to survive. So this life as a reseller I'm confident that I'm going to bounce back and 10 years down the road, look back and say, well, it was tough. We're out of the restaurant business, but financially we're doing fine. And ultimately, we're doing fine anyways because I beat cancer. But, it's just nobody likes to have to lose a business. But look what's going in the past year with COVID, that a lot of businesses have been destroyed by nothing that owner did wrong, but just wasn't financially ready to have to shut their restaurant down for months.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other night, and I don't remember whose podcast it was. I'd shout it out if I could remember. I can't remember, but the 2 guys, they were talking about the whole COVID thing, and the guy said that he has a friend that lived out in California, and he was in the restaurant. He's in the restaurant business, fairly well known out there and everything like that. And he said that 75% of all small business restaurants in California are gone.
Yeah, and they won't come back because who wants to honestly? It's very hard to come up with the money. It's very hard to if you have a job where you can make $50,000 a year or get some. What do you want to? And banks don't want to lend the money. I mean, it's getting very, very hard for mom and pops anymore.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing now with a lot of restaurants is that people who have other successful businesses are investing into doing restaurants just to have some extra money or have a write-off and just basically looking to acquire the real estate. And then if they get lucky, yeah, great, they make some money for a couple of years. Because restaurant business, you can make some great money for a couple of years, but can you do it for 20 years? Yeah. You know, I remember, I mean, McDonald's has gone through their struggles and stuff like that. And they've had their own issues, and they, being a public company, was able to bounce back because they hired the right people and they have the capital they can borrow and they can remodel. Mom and pops don't have that,
Yeah, I mean, and it's just, I think restaurant businesses, it gets a lot of shade thrown on them, but restaurant business is one of the hardest businesses to run.
Yeah, it's very labor intensive. It's low margins.
Yeah,
you can't control. You can't really control food costs anymore. The two things that you used to be able to control in a restaurant was labor and food cost, because your fixed costs are your fixed costs. Your mortgage is your mortgage, your electric, your phone, that's all fixed. You used to be able to negotiate and say, hey, for example, I'm going to buy, beef for $1.50 a pound. And now, if corn is more expensive, if oil is more, it affects all those things that just, our government likes to talk about there's no inflation. Yeah. Tell that to a typical family that is spending more for healthcare and food, which they don't factor in the inflation model of life. And I remember years ago being able to go and buy a 4-pound pack of beef for $10. Yeah. Now that same pack is $30, and the restaurants are feeling it too. And it's hard to compete, to get help to do that now. And we're talking about a national $15 minimum wage, where in some areas of the country, it's already happening in major cities like New York, some states like Washington, areas of California and stuff like that. We wouldn't be able to compete. I mean, we did pay a lot of our employees $10 an hour. There were some that made $13 and stuff like that, but it's just a tough business anymore. Typically, the restaurant business you're lucky if you're making 10 or 15%, and that's not until you really get your break-even point.
Yeah, everybody knows that I work in the restaurant. I work in the restaurant industry, still, on top of doing the podcast and reselling and all that stuff. And I can tell you that I make more money than my boss does. That's saying a lot. If the head cook in the place makes more money than the actual owner does.
Well, and without you, she'd probably have to close down because she can't do it by herself. Yeah. That's again where the labor intensive.
You got to find somebody that's reliable and that actually wants to come in and work. And
right, and
people nowadays they don't want to put in the grind to get anywhere.
And also what has happened is, and I've always said this. You have like a need for 10,000 good employees, but you only have 8,000. So as more that's sort of what hurt us is that in a 5-mile radius, we had 17 restaurants when I first bought the place. Mm-hmm. And about 5 years into it, there was 24 restaurants. So there was 7 more restaurants, but the population didn't grow. It just cut up the old pie theory, Right. Now, if there was $5 million to spend on those restaurants, it was being divided up among 23 restaurants versus 17. And then the competitiveness for good quality help was there too. That you get someone that has another successful business, and they say, "Hey, I'll steal your cook for $2 an hour more," because they don't care, even if they barely make any money from the restaurant.
Yeah.
You have something else. Like I had an excavator come to me one time, maybe about buying my restaurant, and he wound up buying an old restaurant that closed down with a liquor license, and he took a year to remodel it. It didn't matter because the guy was making like $3 million from another business, and the $700,000 he put into that new venture, it was a write-off for him. It didn't matter. Where for us, and that's what happens with a lot of these small businesses. It's like you're buying yourself a job.
Right. Yeah. What do you think is what do you think is something that newer generation of kids, young kids, people just getting into the workforces and stuff like that, seeing that you came from the restaurant background, you've probably seen, a lot of younger kids come through work. What is something that you see that they could do to better themselves?
Well, honestly, I think any kids should just get out there and do something, even at 14, 15 years old. When I started in the restaurant business as a dishwasher, the dream was to own my own restaurant, and I did it. I worked hard. I started at $3 an hour. The problem with a lot of these
back in 1914,
1915 to be
gotcha.
Correct. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson, me sat down with George Washington and drafted up the rules of dishwashing, and history was made.
Damn. That was a long time ago.
I don't think those guys were still living yet, Static, but a lot of these name brands like your Olive Gardens, your McDonald's, they won't even give 14 years old a chance because of the regulations that these states have put into place. Like you can't have a 14-year-old work past 7 o'clock because they're school the next day. Well, if the restaurant is open to 9 o'clock and then the kids get out of school at 4 o'clock, it doesn't leave them much time to make any money, where a lot of mom and pops were willing to, and probably still are to this day, to a point, to break the rules and just kind of look the other way. So I wanted to make money. I grew up in a household that, didn't have their priorities right. We struggled on welfare. And I realized to get out of poverty and have something for myself, that I needed to work. And the kids nowadays are different though, because the parents are spoiling them. They're paying for their cell phones. They don't have the ambition level's not the same.
Yeah. I see that. Me being in the restaurant business industry, like I see a lot of young kids come through there, and I'd say about over the last 5-6 years since I've been in the industry, seeing probably 40 or 50 kids roll through this business that I work with. Some of them are more ambitious than others. Some of them are just like, and half of them don't even make it because they don't like to come to work.
Well, I think ambition comes from lack of money, lack of, again, we spoil these kids, and I'm always reminded that, our country talks about immigration and people coming from other countries, and not to down them, because people come from, and I work, honestly, in the restaurant business, I've worked with people from Mexico, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and the driving force of them coming to this country and wanting to work at the restaurant 12-hour days was money, because in their countries, a lot of times they made $1 an hour. They would come here, work for $8 an hour, live 5 of them in an apartment home, save money, be willing to send half of that money back home to their family. I mean, imagine now some Americans, me wanting to borrow, let's say if I had a brother and I wanted to borrow $50, you're like, yeah, when am I going to get it back? They think totally different, and I think that's the problem that we have nowadays. We just give out too much, too quick and too fast. And we're not willing to have people feel like they're worthy of, setting goals and dreams and working and having that money, that it's like, oh, well, it's happening. I talked to, having 800 employees. And, when I was part of the Subway franchise, I was involved with the advertising committee, and I was part of the territory excellence committee. So I was very proactive on wanting to grow my business. And that's one of the reasons I even do YouTube is to network and wanting to learn and grow my reselling business instead of saying, hey, I know it all. And you have kids out there that, they just, again, they're spoiled. They need to, we just give out too much as a whole, as a country, that we need to create entrepreneurship again. And people that are rich entrepreneurs, like your Mark Zuckerberg, those are people that go to Harvard, and then they want to create billion-dollar companies. But I'm talking about people that want to get into the restaurant business, that are dirt poor people, and say, hey, I want to buy a job, I want to do and there's people out there like that, but they just don't know how to go about it, and to do that, and could run nice little businesses. Yeah. I hope to see that cycle again in the future. I hope that going through what we've gone through, especially this last year and a half, that we haven't destroyed the dream of owning a small business.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I was one over the last year. I don't know how many times I got screamed at by people from all walks of life, because I'm like, guys, what about the small businesses? What about the small businesses? What about these people? What about these people's livelihoods? What about this? What about this? And people, literally everybody, Pat, told me it doesn't matter. They have insurance. They have this. They can survive. They'll be fine. And I'm just like, you guys don't even know. As somebody that works in a small business, like the restaurant that I work in is a small business.
Right.
I seen it firsthand how what happened over the last year affected the job that I have. So I know firsthand how it happened. And now they're talking about the whole $15 minimum wage and stuff like that. That would literally crush the business that I work for, that's been around for 100 years.
Right.
It would crush it. It would wipe it from existence. And that's a sad part of that's a super sad thing when you have, like, my boss, she's been in business for 40 years now. A lot of hard time, work, and effort, being able to become a pillar of the community and everything like that we're in. That's a lot of hard work to have something run for 40 years.
Right. And that's the thing. Like you said, 40 years. And think about that. I mean, I don't know how old the lady is, but let's say she started that when she's 25 and she's 65 now. Think of the generations of the people. I mean, 20 years ago, it was a totally different customer that came. Mm-hmm. A lot of your customer base is dying off.
Oh, yeah.
It's not being replaced by a younger customer base, because that loyalty is not necessary. Now, there are some that are loyal, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But basically is, there's not like, well, I want to go there because my, grandfather went there. It's very hard. And if you're not out there basically advertise, Coca-Cola has been around for over 120 years, but they still advertise. And a small mom and pop just can't get that message out there at the same. I mean, look at McDonald's. I mean, yeah. They are the largest chain in the world as far as the volume of food. The largest individual chain is actually Subway, but revenue-wise, it's McDonald's. But who's to say 40 years from now, McDonald's could be out of business?
Yeah.
Because maybe people are eating more like Chipotle, or, they're eating more, different things.
I would love to see a resurgence of small mom and pop businesses, from all types of spectrums, whether it's restaurant, fashion, hair cutting, reselling businesses, small mom and pop reselling.
Well, that takes a community effort. I mean, I've seen, I follow, and I still always have an interest in business, and I follow CNBC, and that starts in places, believe it or not. Let's say like Facebook is in California, and then there's all of a sudden they're hiring 20,000 employees, and now the demand for housing goes up. And then there's an area of the community that nothing was going on, but because you have this drive to then all of a sudden people's like, oh, I want to open a flower shop, I want to open a hoagie shop, I want to open a coffee cafe. So you see those in certain pockets of communities, but it's very hard for one couple to go into a town if you don't have the housing support, the support from your supervisors and stuff like that. I mean, I remember back when we had a recession, 2008, and 500 restaurants, they say, closed in Manhattan. When 9/11 happened, Manhattan was hurt by, but they said, I've heard reports and read reports that this last year has been the worst for the restaurant businesses in Manhattan, even worse than the recession of 2007, 2008, and worse than 9/11. Yeah. Because people they basically shut everybody down. You took away your customer base, and once you do that, I mean, you can't stay open if you don't have a customer base. And what happens is a lot of these places are rented. The landlord still has a mortgage to pay. They have rent, and then you get 6 months that you don't have no business, but you still owe rent. You're already opening behind the 8 ball. How do you? So I'm hoping one day that small business will come back. It'll take a big effort. It'll take a community effort and even on a government level to basically encourage, like, hey, let's tie all these components together, because people are you need to eat out. You need to eat daily. If you're working at a factory and you have a half an hour break and you want to quick run in and grab a sub or grab a coffee and stuff like that, you need that interaction with people and stuff like that. Me being a reseller, I can't reach out into the screen and buy myself a chicken parm hoagie or grab a coffee or right. And a lot of that's hard to even do at your own house. You never get it right. And we never can make Chinese at home the way the Chinese restaurants make it.
Yeah. Yeah. I follow a guy on social media named Michael Malice, and he's from New York, and he's originally from Ukraine, and he's been in America for the longest time now. But he says it sickens him to see what they've done to New York. The restaurants that he used to go visit's not there anymore. The places where he used to buy clothes, that's not there anymore. And he says everywhere he's ever went in his life since he's been a kid, living in New York, is gone. And that's just you think about something like that. You have all these places and they've been around since this guy who's 50 years old, and all of these places are gone now in less than a year.
Well, Static, I think honestly what's going to happen over the next 20 to 40 years, you're going to get a resurgence of immigration again, because we are the best country in the world. We have a lot of places that are neglected, and you're going to have people willing to come from other countries, bring their talents of cooking and doing businesses, and they're hopeful. And that's what, honestly, that places that were abandoned or nobody could, that they think different than we do. Yeah. They instead of, let's say, worried about buying a $50,000 SUV, they're trying to save $50,000 because they want to buy a job or create a business in their community, because they now have lifetime in employment for themselves. They're not worried about really, and I see it all the time. I've helped Chinese people that are successful in business, and I remember when a Chinese couple used to ride a bike, and I used to go to the bank and make the deposit. And about 5 years into it, they bought a house. Here's a neat fact a lot of people don't realize. There's more Chinese restaurants in the United States than there are all the fast food franchises combined.
Oh yeah, there's 2 in my town, run by 2 separate families. So I mean, I could imagine that, and that's kind of one of the reasons, why I've done my podcast is I want to bring people back to, you know, a little bit of I guess you could say understanding, common ground, and being like, hey, like, you know, there's always things bigger at play. But, you know, if we support each other, if we really do support each other, you know, whether it be small businesses and stuff like that, you know, maybe some of those places will survive. And I can tell you over the last year, this whole COVID thing, I can tell you the amount of work in places that I've shopped at. I haven't been to a national chain store in over a year. Every bit of shopping that I've done has been done in all the local mom and pop shops around my town. The first time that I went to Walmart back in January, my mom was up in January and she wanted me to go run and get something and nothing else was open. And I was like, well, crap. I was just like, I don't really want to go to this place anymore. But, you know, I was like, mom wants it, so mom's going to get it. But like I've made it, except for the stuff, you know, like the books and stuff that I buy, you know, because I like to read and crap like that. So I buy books because there's no bookstores here in town, you know, and I don't want to have to drive 40, 30, you know, 40 miles just to go to a bookstore. But because I work enough, you know, and driving 40 miles out of my way just to go get a book, you know, it's kind of not conducive to my time at the moment.
Right.
But, you know, I buy all my clothes from the local thrift stores, or we have this we do have one place here in town that's called Tractor Supply, which is a kind of a chain place.
Yeah, we have that in our town too now.
Yeah,
came about 5 years ago.
Yeah, and that's I wouldn't say it's a chain. It might be a chain store, but it's still
it's a big, you know, I mean, like they have several hundred.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Walmart size, but yet
that's probably the only chain place that I go to, and that's because they got really good thermal clothes.
Right.
So, other than that, you know, I buy everything that I can find at local thrift stores and, you know, mom and pop shops. Or we have a small local grocery store that's only local to our town. So, I mean, I'm good with what I do. I can survive and I can make it off of. The only time I buy anything that's not local is when I buy shipping supplies for the resale business, and I get all that crap from Amazon or something like that.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, and you're going to see more of this, and I touched on it briefly with the immigration. A lot of the small businesses that are succeeding or being sold, they're being bought by people from other countries. Yeah. I mean, I sold all my Subway franchises to people from India, and locally in our town, I see it. I mean, I see it, and I'm not trying to stereotype. It's a reality. What's happening is they want to come to America because of the income opportunity to make versus their country, mm-hmm. and they're willing to put in the 12-hour days, and they look at it. They sacrifice and willing to, and they work to. So if they need a day off, then they get the brother or the cousin that's involved in the business, and they work it, and they make a goal of it, and yeah. Get to a point where they're so successful in that, at the level that they're willing to then to buy another business and so on. I mean, I know a guy that has 25 truck plazas and started with like one gas station like 30 years ago. And you can't knock them. If anything, we should learn as from people from these experiences and what they're doing and stuff like that. That we honestly should be sticking more together, and we're escaping the wealth that they're creating because we're not willing to sacrifice and work together and do the time that they are willing to. And I think that's just a culture difference from where they come from. That, you know, we're a little too spoiled.
Yeah, I mean, I've 5-6 years ago, whenever I moved back to my hometown where I'm originally from, I moved back here maybe man, it might have been 6, 7 years ago. But I moved back here because I knew it was the cheapest place for me to live. That, and I knew that I knew people. I got family members here. I got friends that still live here, and it would be the easiest place for me to eventually start back and build what will hopefully eventually one day become the whole Static Empire. and this was the goal that I've had, and granted, it's going a lot slower than what I've liked. But
well, let me ask you something. And I know you brought me on as a guest, and I'm asking you some questions. That
but that's the whole point of a conversation, man.
We're buddies and we're hanging out, and I'm always looking out for the best of your interest. Why do you think it's been going slow? Is somebody not there to push you or motivate you into like I've talked to you recently about buying a house. I bought my first house when I was 23. And have owned 3 houses since then. And, you see a lot of good people that are working hard and stuff like that. And you ask them, like, why haven't you? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I just never had an interest. And it's like, what are you waiting for? I mean, especially now is probably the opportunity that is probably presented to you, that you're going to pay the same what you would do in rent and have some equity and something for yourself in the future. I mean, why not just go and do it?
Well, I mean, I guess over the last 5 years, particularly, it's just me, because 6 years ago, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a dime to my name. I was at that point in time. I was jumping from state to state. I lived in 4 states in 4 years prior to that. I lived in Pennsylvania, up by Lancaster. I lived there for about a year and a half. I lived. I jumped back to St. Louis for a time. I jumped down to Florida for probably about another year and a half, and then I went up to North Carolina, and I was there for I was in North Carolina for 6, 7, 8 months, and then I was like, you know what? Something's got to change. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to the only place where I know that I can afford to live right now, because I didn't have a job at that time. And at that time, I was supporting myself by doing photography and just other random odd jobs. I was doing scrap metal, buying scrap, getting scrap metal, I was essentially a scrapper.
Yeah.
So.
Did you say scrapper or stripper?
Scrapper.
Oh, okay. I wanted to clarify.
I mean, I know you would have liked to known me to be in the stripper, Pat, but
I don't know if you could climb the pole. So that's
probably not. I'm too fat.
You need real.
Yeah, my arms are too short to climb that pole. Come on now. But I was a scrapper, and that's how I supported myself and my fiance at the time. But it was just something snapped at me. I was like, you know what, man, I got to make a change. I got to do something different. And I was getting tired of just being like, you know what, you're talking a lot about a lot of stuff, and you never put forth the effort to actually do it.
Right.
So over the course,
a lot of people have that problem.
Yeah, over the course of the last 5 to 6 years, it was kind of just a baby step program of me building myself back up and branching off into all the things that I wanted to do. And sometimes it's I think to go back to your question is, what do you think's taking you so long, or why do you think it's not where I want it to be? Because just there's some stuff over the last 5 years that's went on, that, and I deal with depression and stuff like that. So there's days and times where I just get in a funk, and I'm just like, screw it, I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna go 9 to 5 and whatever. But then I come around, I'm just like, and I have that problem, and I'll never not admit that, but after this past year, 2020, and seeing all of these places disappear, and me screaming at the top of my lungs, telling people to wake up and to open their eyes to see what's really happening, I realize that I can't be the person that just sits back anymore and just casually goes with the flow like I normally do. that I actually have to be the person to get out there and essentially run full speed at what I want to do and try to grab up everything that I want to do.
Yeah, because no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And I don't care who politically is in office. You got to start with yourself and in your own community, because man, time will pass you by and you'll look back and say, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. I mean, even though that I've, you know, and I've had people say to me, I say, hey, I failed in the last restaurant that I did. Oh, you didn't fail. Well, I did. I gotta, you know, maybe it wasn't all my fault, but I failed. But I can't sit here and whine and cry about it. I have to pick myself up because, you know, I want to keep a roof over my head. I have a wife and two boys. Now my sons are 20 and 31 years old. They're not little kids anymore. But, you know, I've always felt life is short, and if I don't grab it, somebody else is going to grab it and get out there and get it, because I've always wanted to, not that I wanted to be rich, but I always felt that, you know, money empowered you to kind of do some things that you can't do being poor. You know, so there's things that I want to do to give back, and I gave back in my business, and it allows you time to, you know, to even volunteer and do a lot of things that, again, you can't. I mean, when I was a kid growing up, we didn't have a car a lot of times. Yeah. You know, we walked. I mean, I remember walking to the. I remember I was, and I got upset and was crying about it as a teenager, because I would ride a bike at like 14, 15 years old. I remember having money. I had something like $60, and I went I rode my bike and I went into the store and I bought groceries, and I went to go up and pay, and I had lost the money, and I had to leave the groceries there, drive home, and say I lost the money. And it was my money, but I was so upset. And then I learned a lot. You know, I had it in my hand like this on the cart, but there was times then I would go there, and I had a weekly job washing dishes. I would cut grass. I would deliver newspapers. And my dad had me late. He had me at 45 years old, and he was a ladies' man, and he never married my mom, and they had their own issues, and he was married twice before, but we struggled. We didn't have a lot. I mean, I remember seeing the neighbors. We opened our fridge. We didn't have. So when I was making money, I was buying food for my dad, and my sister wound up living there then. And I would ride home on the bike with grocery bags on the handles and stuff like that. So, you know, I come from a poor welfare background, and I always said that I want to be a better father and a better husband than what I was when I grew up. And it takes money. You know, you can be a good person for free, but it takes money to put food on the table and keep a roof over your head and have a car. Yeah.
And that's something like most people don't know is the little story that I told 5-6 years prior. Like I had nothing. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a bank account at that time. Like I literally, the only thing that I owned was a backpack, a suitcase, a handful of clothes, and a cell phone that worked on Wi-Fi. You know, so like I didn't have anything. So to me, where I'm at in my life now, from 5 to 6 years ago, having my own apartment, having a full-time job, that I have the keys to the freaking building,
and having, honestly too, and
I have 3 cars. I had 3 cars. I sold one of them not too long ago. So and in 5 years,
even the ability to do this. Yeah. Anytime you want, you could reach out through someone through Facebook or Messenger or social media and say, hey, Pat, hey, John, hey, you know, Rob, can we talk? And, you know, sounds like 6 years ago, you really didn't have that if you didn't have a cell phone or some network of friends that you could kind of lean on to kind of get you motivated and do those things.
Yeah. Like I had a cell phone, but it ran through Wi-Fi. So if I wasn't near a Wi-Fi area that had Wi-Fi,
it didn't work.
I didn't use it. It didn't work. I used it as a something to listen to music on.
Right.
You know, so I still had friends and stuff like that, but like if I wasn't in an area that had Wi-Fi, there was no way that I would be able to talk to these people.
Right, exactly.
You know, that, and that was right about the time that I started to do, when I moved back here, I got it in. I was just like, I'm going to start doing stuff on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and stuff like that. And I started all this venture into what I do now. All of that started through Instagram. I was doing motivational things that I called motivational madness on Instagram. They were like 13-second clips of me just talking random stuff, about getting motivated and doing something with your life that you wanted to do. And then that kind of morphed into, I'd meet somebody and then I'd see what they're doing. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do this. And essentially my life over the last 7 years has come full circle. Like it started from one thing and it's branched off to where I'm at now of being that person that goes out and does what he wants to do. Something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be able to live my life how I wanted to live my life. Find my own happiness. And for me, finding my own happiness is not about making millions and millions of dollars. It's being able to be happy and content within myself and what I'm doing with myself at that current moment in time. Like, am I happy with what I'm doing with my life right now? And I can say, and why I get so confrontational with some people about things is, they tell me they see me and they're like, Jaysin, you need to be doing this and you need to do this. You can make this much, you could do this much more and you could make this much more. And I'm like, bro, I'm happy and I'm content with my life where I'm at right now. I'm the happiest that I've ever been in my life. Yes, I still suffer from depression and stuff like that, and I have bad days, but I'm the happiest that I've ever been, and I know what direction that I want to go in. That's not something that I've ever had in my life over the last 6 years. I know the direction and the path of where I want to go at. I know what I need to do to get there. It's just making sure that I don't overload myself to the point of where I burn myself out, or I put too much on my plate and I can't succeed, which in turns, makes me take 14 steps back.
Right.
So the slow roll of what I've done now, and the reason why I said earlier is why it's not as quick as what I've like. Obviously, I'm that type of, I want it right now, but I realize that certain stuff can't be right now. Certain stuff has to be put back later until I reach that point. And I'm fine with that, even though I don't like it. Because having too much on my plate at one time, it's going to get me to the point of where I just get, too caught up. I get too engulfed into what I'm doing. Stuff starts slipping. And that's when those monsters and demons that we all have, get the squawking, and those are the places that I don't want to go to. And that's my overall goal, is to make sure those demons that I have don't come knocking on my door. So I've realized over the course of the last several years is small steps for me works best. I might not like it, but that's what works best for me, because then I don't overload myself. And obviously I'm doing something right because it's working for me. Like I said, I got a full-time job. All my bills are paid. I got 2 cars, getting ready to buy a house. I've got the podcast. I've ventured out and doing all kinds of things. It's steadily, slowly growing. I've got a bigger goal this year for the podcast of getting on bigger and more far out there guests that I've always been timid about trying to get on beforehand. But now that I feel like I have enough growth behind me, I feel like I can branch out to try to go grab people that 2 years ago when I started doing this, I wouldn't even thought about trying to grab. For the last 2 years, it's just been me and my friends on here, people that I know. But over the course of over the course of this year. I was originally going to start it in 2020, but heck, stuff come up and all kinds of stuff happened, and I had to kind of scramble because I wasn't expecting something like this, something like that. So I put it off for another year, and this year I'm coming out the gates. I'm going to try to get a lot of different people on my show, you know, whether it be political commentators, musicians, wrestlers. Like, and I'm not just talking about wrestlers that I know. I'm talking about like big name wrestlers, and like I'm gonna go for the gusto this year, and that's kind of nerve wracking sometimes, you know, because I don't know, it's just kind of nerve wracking.
Well, I mean, you just keep asking. I mean, they're going to have times where, you know, a lot of times there will be times you hear no, but you know, you're getting this down. You can interact and talk with people. You practice with your friends, and now you want to step it up, and as you do more, you get more comfortable doing it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know in my skill set, basically dealing with, you know, I've had a talk in front of 100 people already, and my wife's like, "Oh, how can you do it? It doesn't matter." Because once you do it enough, you get comfortable doing it. I mean, someone could sometimes distract you, or you know, you'll get caught up in your thoughts, and then you know that'll happen.
Yeah.
But just have confidence in what you're doing, and you'll be fine.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things that I was, you know, that the reason why I did the live streams. I was doing live streams back when people were telling me not to do the live streams.
Yeah.
You know, oh, that's going to kill your channel. Don't do that. It's going to kill your YouTube channel. Nobody does live streams. What are you doing live streams? Why are you doing shows and stuff like that? There was only like maybe 2 or 3 people that were doing them, and they had like, you know, 40, 50, 100,000 fans, you know, like on YouTube. I had 400 people at that time when I started doing live streams. So like, and people were like, don't do this. It's bad for you. And I'm just like, man, let me do what I want to do. I know what I'm going. I know where I'm going. Let me do what I got to do. Don't tell me what I got to do. Let me do my thing.
I think that'll be neat actually in the future when if you do buy this house, you could maybe have one room just for a studio, and do some fun things.
That's the goal. That's one of the reasons why I stopped doing video, is because I'm that type of person where if something doesn't set right with me, I don't want to. The video aspect of my show, like the content was always good, the conversations and the topics that we always talked about was always good. It was always engaging and fun and exciting for the people in the chat, but I just didn't like how it looked visually.
Yeah.
I wanted something more. And why should I settle for less if I know that I really want more?
Is that why I didn't get the purple lights in the background today?
Yeah, that's why you just got the black room, man. Well, no, that's just because there's all kinds of stuff back there, like all piled up.
And Pat Dees, you know what they used to say, a face for radio, not for TV. So since we're doing this podcast, it doesn't matter what's in our background now.
Well, that and over the course of the last year or so that I've just been doing straight audio, it's really helped me learn audio production. Which is good for you to learn for a podcast. You know, most people don't even realize that. I'd say a good 75% of all podcasts are just straight audio. There's only I'd say about 25% of podcasts are actually video, and those people have big production teams behind them.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I don't. I have just myself. So being able to edit the audio and the video all at the same time, and making sure and doing that every week, and edit a 3-hour or 2-hour show every week. There was times where I was putting three or 4 days of nonstop editing on a 3-hour podcast episode, just to sync it up, make sure the video all looked good, and make sure nothing was off. It was the biggest pain in the ass that I've ever had. besides having to sit on a live show with Pat Dees. Pat Dees, favorite wrestler of all time?
The Rock.
The Rock. Why is The Rock your favorite of all time?
Just because he's he came from wrestling and grew into a Hollywood superstar, and I met him in real life, and just a great guy. I used to live in the Lehigh Valley, and The Rock was smart. He comes across as clean cut, and he comes across as just a smart businessman.
Mm-hmm. Least favorite wrestler of all time?
I couldn't pick anybody out. I'll tell you something I haven't told my friends here before, and I'll probably get made fun of now, but back in 7th grade, and I talked about talking in front of people and stuff like that, and I had a teacher, Mrs. Apple, and she wanted to encourage the kids to come up in front of the class and talk, so it was like a career day thing. So the students she picked had to come up with a career, and you would stand in front of the class and they would ask you questions. I dressed up like Adrian Adonis.
Mm-hmm.
And Adrian Adonis went through that moment where he was wearing the pink tights, the leg warmers, and the bows in his hair. So I had a neighbor give me I wore like over my pants some leg warmers. I put a bow in my hair, and I think I wore like a bow or something like that. And people, I got like 5 questions in front of the kids. And oh man, was I as nervous as hell. And someone went in as a police officer, so there was probably about 5 of us that did that. But I went in as Adrian Adonis. And
what I wouldn't give for a video camera to be in that room at that point in time. I would love to have that video, Pat D.
I would have loved to have a picture because, let's be honest. I mean, this is going back 35 years ago when honestly the character that he was playing, looking back at it, there was a lot of homophobic, and yet this guy in real life was married and had kids, and he wasn't that. But it was brave for me to really want to do that and really put a bow. But I honestly, the reason I picked him because I thought he was the easiest, and I also thought it was funny. So I wanted to be funny and entertain the class, and I didn't look at it as nothing as being worried about gay or anything like that. But I'm glad I never got made fun of it. I remember when Mrs. Apple called me up, and maybe some kid snickered or something like that, and she shut him right down and and said, "Oh, it's hard for him to come up and I wish there was video or even just a picture."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that guy was I think wasn't he originally from Florida? He
died in a car accident. And I mean, probably about 20 years ago. It's funny because I was looking it up the other day, and back then we didn't have. Yeah, he died in 1988, so I was only 16. I mean, he died like a year or 2 later. And if anybody's looking up Adrian Adonis, you'll see back in the day, like he went through that where he was a badass like biker dude, and he had put on some weight. And the funny thing is, I wasn't that heavy back then. But kids always made you feel like if you were 10 pounds over that, you're fat, or you, and I was like, there was other wrestlers that I was close to, but they didn't dress up like, or were again trying to be funny. And I just ran with it. I went in there and did that. So I don't have a least favorite. This is what I will say. Least favorite.
Another guy who was like Adrian Adonis was Adrian Street.
But he used to go really wild with his hair and his makeup.
Yeah, Adrian Street was pretty wild.
The first wrestling match that I saw on Saturday was when John Studd and Andre the Giant and they cut Andre's hair. I did not like John Studd then. Mm-hmm. As I got to realize about the business and over time, I had a neighbor that was a wrestler, so I love the business and love the guys and still do to this day. And I've met many of them, but sadly, a lot of the guys from the 80s are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the life of a wrestler. Fast and young. That's one of those. Wrestlers are like rock stars. They're 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 uh they're around in a flash, and they come out quick. Some of them crash, and for the ones who do get to be old, they become either old drunks or old drug addicts because they're in too much pain from the life that they lived.
Right.
And that's a sad reality of that. What's the deal with your new YouTube venture that you were talking about earlier?
Well, when I first started YouTube, I was playing LPs, and to get practice, I wanted to play records, and I enjoy, and I always played off, my name, Pat Dees, Rick Dees, and wanting to play. I enjoy music, and I wanted to play records, and I was like, well, what else do I do? I'm like, I didn't really have a lot to resell on eBay I didn't know, do people want to see that I sold a pair of jeans? So I was like, well, I like the stock market. Why don't I talk about, but there, as you were trying to do more on a resale, you get sometimes into too much. It can get confusing, or who's your true audience? So I really thought, about a year ago, I started doing some more on that. But then I took a break because with COVID, I was so busy being an Amazon reseller that I didn't, but I always still watch the market every day. So I made a decision this year to, it's tough to have reselling content, that I wanted to do more on my other channel called Money Me. And
Sure.
I was calling it Pat's Hall before, but it was kind of confusing. Hall was supposed to stand for health and wealth. But it was too like, well, what does Hall stand for? Because, I remember back in the day growing up, he Hall, so, I was like, it was hard to explain that, but everybody understands money, and basically, Money Me, was, talking about money, teaching people,
Money Me with Pat Dees.
Yeah. So, and the punchline is, will you money me? And, subscribe to the channel. And, so I've been doing daily videos talking about the market and Mike's, and people say, well, how can you talk? Well, I have over 25 years experience in business and trading the market, doing stocks, doing options, being a landlord. So I know I have a lot of knowledge that I feel like I can share with the average person. As we talked earlier, I grew up on welfare, and I had $1 million restaurant and owned franchises. And so I think I have a lot of information that I could give and talk about on that channel, and trying to build an audience over there. It is tough. I do realize, man, trying to grow a channel on YouTube is tough. And I didn't realize how tough, I guess, when I first did my other channel. It took me about 6 months to get to 1,000 subs, but I was just gung-ho and did it. And but I think over the long term, is Money Me can really be something that, if I can really show people how to make money, and I manage several accounts. I've worked with someone who has 20 properties and got him involved in the market. And I got invested about $12,000 last year for him, and he has close to $30,000 now I've picked the stocks for him. And so I'm doing a lot on that channel, and I think there's a big opportunity there.
You think there's a bigger opportunity there than it is on your other channel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's a broader audience that maybe people don't want to be my other channel, again, is about my life as the traveling picker, but ultimately it's a reseller. And, there's more content I'm going to put on there. There's things that I'm going to do. But, where I live, we're in the winter right now. But yeah, on Money Me, everybody, you rent a house, you own a house, you make money, you have a job, you want to open a certificate deposit, you want to invest. So money is in basically all aspects of life. And, right. I like talking even about baseball. People invest into baseball cards. So there's even those videos that I could do over there, not necessarily from a reselling point, but more from an investment point, that if people are going to invest into collectibles or different things. So there's just so much more. And actually, YouTube actually pays more for those type of videos because the advertisers that like banks and Ameritrade and those type of companies advertise
right.
on those type of videos. So the CPM is much higher.
Yeah. Well, what is something that you would like to do with YouTube that you've had the idea to do, but you just haven't been able to capitalize on actually trying it?
Well, I talked about this recently on my regular channel. Is there again? My regular channel, Pat Dees, is really about my life as a reseller. Part of being my life as a reseller is, I travel. I go to, like, my most popular video is Paul Jr. Designs, has over 31,000 views. Well, one of the things I've always wanted to do in life was build like either a little log cabin or a tree house and do a garden. So those are one of the things that I'm talking and going to do. Is I have 17 acres of woods here in Pennsylvania, so I'm going to build a 2-man log cabin on the property, but I want to do it that it's so natural that I don't go out and necessarily get all like plywood. I really want to use the resources that are on the property. Like if I was thrown into Canada and had to, you got to build a roof over your head so you can make it through the winter. I want to throw an old wood stove.
So you're gonna do like hand hewn type stuff where like you go out and cut the tree down, skin it and everything like that.
Some of that. I mean, what I'm probably going to do is, because of time and being busy with other things, we have a local log mill. I have a log sawmill about 2 miles away from my house that basically I could take lumber there and get them to basically debark it and get the local lumber instead of going like Home Depot. So I want to build. I want to build it, basically and off the grid, and also having that, growing tomatoes and growing cucumbers, that old farm reliance type. I want to do some of those videos because I think I watch some of those videos and there's definitely a lot of interest in not self-reliance and off the grid.
That's I was actually telling somebody not too long ago. I think it might have been Jesse Wildman Sales. I think I was talking to him about it, and we were talking about just the type of stuff that I'm doing. Like I was wanting to do the whole, getting me a van and stuff like that, and I'm still going to do that. But I'm also wanting to buy a house, and I'm also wanting to do like homesteading and stuff like that, and buying old properties and stuff like that, and rehabbing them and stuff like that. And just because like I love old things, like old houses, old buildings, old cars, just stuff that's losing the fight of life to time and just people not caring about it anymore. Nobody wants a house built in 1920 anymore, or 1800s. You very rarely see somebody want to put that type of time and effort and work into a house like that.
Do you remember the shows This Old House?
Yeah.
I used to watch those.
Yeah.
That always was a dream of mine. I love, if I had the money, and there's where even in the future, I am a landlord. I do have a rental property and we did gut it. So I have experience. Sometimes people come up with, oh, well, you don't have the experience to do it. I have the experience that I've done it, but I would love to set up where you take something that's old and crappy and you turn it into something that's a livable space. People enjoy it because it gives them like, oh, we could do that. And it beats a lot of stuff that's on TV now.
Yeah. And that's kind of like my future in video producing and stuff like that. Is I want to do like I said, I'm want to do the hiking thing. I want to do car videos. Like right now I have a Datsun. As soon as I get a garage, that thing is going to be gung ho. I'm stripping that whole car down to the bare metal. I'm taking everything off of it, and I'm going to start doing videos on it.
I think that's a great idea because that's one thing is I didn't want to get stuck in the niche of being a reseller because I think the audience is small and that's not all I do. I don't resell 24 hours a day. And then when I do make some money from reselling and making money from investments and stuff like that, I want to do things that are, life is short. I want to do, build this log cabin, remodel this house and do things that other people, it brings other eyes into your world and that they watch.
I've been trying to explain to a lot of our friends that we run around with that do YouTube and stuff. I go, guys, I go, you guys can try to find the next big YouTube thing that's going to make you blow up. But if you guys just do the stuff that you love to do, create the type of videos that you love to do.
I know, and I it's funny because I hear that. Oh well, you get such a mixed message. Oh, people don't want to see. You got to do videos that they wanted, and I don't think that's true. I think there's a large enough audience out there that will enjoy. You just got to find that and keep at it and do it and do a good job at it. And I think you could find an audience that you know.
I tell people some of the biggest YouTubers out there. It's people don't watch them for what they do. They watch them for them. They really do. If you can get a big enough base behind you that watches whatever you do for you. Like there's this guy, Demolition Ranch. I love watching that guy. Such a lively person, you know, and he does so much different stuff. You know, he does gun stuff. He's building a mansion, and
that's the advantage that they have is once they get to a point where, let's say, you have 300,000 subscribers, even if only 10% watch it, that's 30,000 people watching.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not at that level yet.
Me neither. But
having a little over 2,600.
But I've always felt that if you stay true to what you do and what you like to do, that base will eventually come. If you have any type of personality or character, or literally anything that somebody can gravitate to, that crowd will eventually come.
Yeah, I think so too.
It might take you a while to get there, but it will eventually come.
I think as long as you don't take time, last year with COVID and Amazon, and there was a little bit of negativity that I saw on YouTube. So I pulled back some, and I think if I could just stay consistent and put content out there that is not just filler junk, that, you will, the channel's been growing again and my other channel's growing. It's the frustration in doing YouTube is you don't have as much control over it as you do when you're doing when I had a business, I could control, I'm going to advertise here, I'm going to hire this here, I'm going to do this special here. Well, in YouTube, you could say you want to do all those things, and yet you sometimes you put out a video and you're like, oh, I got a couple hundred views, and you're like, well, what happened? And you don't have a whole lot of say over that, and then all of a sudden you put out a video that it gets 1,000 views, and you're like, why? So it can be a little bit discouraging in time, but I think you just got to be consistent.
Yeah. Consistency and just finding that thing because people, like I've learned this from wrestling. People aren't dumb. People aren't dumb. As much as I like to say they are, people aren't dumb, and they can see if you're phoning it in. Like in wrestling, if you see a guy that's out there in the wrestling match and he's kind of like not doing something right, like you can see it. You can tell that the guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And that he doesn't really want to be there.
Right.
You can tell it. Like I was talking to a buddy of mine the other night. I feel like that with John Moxley, Dean Ambrose. I feel like, and I was telling him the other day, I go, John Moxley, whenever John Moxley was John Moxley when the independent scene 10, 12 years ago, the guy was hungry. You could tell he wanted it. And John Moxley now in AEW, he looks like he just still does not care.
I don't know if that's part of his shtick, but I know what you're saying, and I remember the interview that Stone Cold did with him about 2 years ago, and basically called him out publicly on it.
Yeah,
and now maybe he's just sticking with that persona. I don't know,
but it's just one of those things. It's like you can translate that to YouTube. Like you can tell when a person doesn't care about what they're doing.
Right.
Like I don't know if everybody can, but I know I can. I can tell when you're not having, I can tell when you don't actually care about the video that you're producing. I can tell it. And that makes me not want to watch somebody. And most of the time, if I see a video like that, I'm like, this guy doesn't really care about what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's just doing it because he thinks he's going to get they're going to get a bunch of views from it. No, okay, cool. There's other people that I watch and I'm like, man, that guy really loves what he's doing. Those are the type of people that I respect. But hey, Pat Dees, we've been going almost 2 hours now.
Yeah, I know.
You have anything else that you want to plug or talk about or say?
I do appreciate coming on the show. I do got some things to do. As a reseller, having this store open 24 hours, I do got to get some packaging done and kind of wrap up some things here on my end. And, wanting to do the YouTube, I create content every day. I got to decide, okay, what I'm going to do next, for tomorrow and things like that. So, but, I think it was great hanging out with you. I do appreciate the opportunity, and I hope you're happy with me joining you.
Oh yeah, man, I had a good time. Hey, one thing I do want to ask you is, since it's the very end of the podcast, I want you to plug everything that you have, and then after that, I got one more question for you.
Well, we did enough. Pat Dees, my channel, and Money Me. If you guys could check them out, I'd greatly appreciate it. And
all those links will be down in the comments. All those links will be down in the description, so you guys can check Pat Dees out if you're interested and you like what Pat Dees had to say here today. You can go check him out on all of his platforms. And as you guys know, this will be up on Odyssey. It will be on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, and all of those other things in between.
And if you want to reach out to me and follow me, Pat Dees72 on Instagram. That's the way I prefer the social media people to reach out to me. I try to keep my Facebook private between family and friends, but I'm always open to reaching out because Instagram is nice. You can send messages. No one's looking through your photos from your kids for 20 years. So if you guys want to reach out to me, and you have something that you can offer to come on to my YouTube channel and want to talk about, throw it by me. As I was doing this interview with Static here, I was answering emails and doing some bookings of my own stuff coming up in the next 2 weeks.
Gotcha. And last but not least, Pat Dees, at the end of these podcasts, I don't know if you've ever listened to the new style of podcast that I like to do. I always like to leave the rambunctiousness of my podcast.
I'm nervous.
on an inspirational and motivational point. So with that being said, Pat Dees, can you give the base that I have here a little bit of Pat Dees motivation and inspiration just off the top of your head?
Well,
wrestling promo style.
Yeah,
wrestling promo style.
I don't want to write, hey brother, you may not hit a home run every time, but at least show up the bat.
Hey, there we go. Did you hear that, guys? You may not hit a home run every time, but what, Pat?
At least show up the bat.
At least show up the bat. And I can leave you guys with that. Like I say, guys, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And I thank you guys for stopping by one more time. Until next time, remember that no matter what you do in your life, just wake up every morning and get ready for a fight, because that's what life is, baby. It's a fight. And you got to treat each day accordingly. And some days you'll get knocked down and some days you won't. But go out and do what you got to do to get what makes you happy. Other than that, peace out. Bye, Pat Dees.
Bye-bye.
See you, Peckerheads.